Hi guys, my name is Amina. I am 24 years old, and today's video I will be talking about how I sustainably toned my body so as to maintain this for a long period of time. And I didn't do this through fad diet, I did this through sustainable lifestyle changes that are easily implemented even in the lives of busy people. A little backstory into me. I have been overweight my entire life. I was born 10 pounds. I was in the 99th percentile for height. I was a big baby. And that bigness lasted until for years. And it's still going on, to be honest. Grade school, tallest kid, biggest kid, back center of every class picture until about like 7th grade when the boys finally started to catch up. Even in high school, I was the biggest kid in my class. For the first 2 years of high school, I was at an all-girls school, and like I was the biggest kid in that class, which really didn't matter to me at the time because like I was a kid and it was an all-girls school. I really didn't compare myself to anybody. We were all wearing uniforms. However, when I got to a public high school in 10th grade, that was when the bodily comparisons for me really started, because I haven't mentioned this yet, but I did have like a little bit of a binge eating, or not a little bit, I did have a binge eating problem. So backstory on that, I was 14 years old, got my first job, and every single day, and I mean every single day, or at least when I can afford it, I would go to the store and buy an entire cheesecake and just eat that by myself. And when I wasn't doing that, I was going to Tim Hortons and getting a 12-pack of donuts and just eating that by myself. Self-care to me at the time was getting a extra large pizza and just eating that by myself in front of the couch. I hated sports, I hated water, I hated anything healthy. I was killing myself at the age of like 11 to 14, and I didn't even know it. Exercise is not a big part of like my family. I was the oldest. My mom is disabled. My stepdad is really old, so I was never really around people who were a positive example, and that's not their fault. That's just their life circumstances. It's just interesting to see the impact that had on a young me, because I almost thought exercise was awful and draining, because I had heard my mother and my stepfather go, "Oh, I can't exercise today. It's draining." But yeah. So I was 16, transferred to a public school. I was now around boys and girls, and I was a normal 16-year-old. I was developing crushes, but yeah, no, I just didn't feel like I was in a position to put myself out there at all, and this is so sad because of my weight. I always thought that my weight was like the thing holding me back in that sense. So yeah, no, I let a lot of mean comments slide because I just wasn't the most confident in my body, and I wish I'd been more confident myself, because I look back on pictures now and I see that it really wasn't as bad as it was in my own head. But granted, I wasn't working out at all, so the aesthetics and the health aspect were two different things for me. And aesthetically I was decent, but health-wise I was awful. I was pre-diabetic. My cholesterol was terrible. It was not a good time for me. I was dehydrated constantly and constantly hungry. Had painful periods. And I think that was connected to the fact that my weight was, or my fat percentage of my body was just so awful, and I couldn't even do a push-up. Yeah, so I'm 16, finally at a co-ed school. It's around the time when I like started fad dieting, so the military diet, water fasting, just trying to get the aesthetics that I wanted, because I didn't realize that the path to what I wanted was through the health side of it, like drinking water, eating protein, cutting carbs. At least for me, I know I do really well with keto, but I just wanted the aesthetics, and I wanted them as quickly as possible. And that was counterintuitive, because I would fad diet and I would go back to my normal eating habits, gain the weight back, fad diet, gain even more weight back, and it was just this constant roller coaster that was just progressively getting higher, because I was screwing up my metabolism and causing myself to just consistently get bigger and lose more muscle and be less fit. and less healthy. And I didn't realize how bad it was until I got to undergrad. And not even at this point. Okay, so fast forward, we're in university now. And I think this is when it got the worst. So I lied earlier. It starts to get better after this, but at this point, it was worse because I had started drinking at this point. And the calories and alcohol add up. I gained the freshman 15 within the first month or two. And then for the next 6 months, I was at uni. Or, sorry, 3, because I was a COVID undergrad. I continued to gain more weight and my face just swole up because I was eating salty food. I wasn't caring about exercise. I wasn't drinking water at this point. I didn't like water. That was my thing. I made it like a thing where I told people I don't drink water. I drink coffee, soda, and alcohol, which is horrible. But yeah, that was my thing. COVID happens, we all get sent home, the Chloe Ting workouts become really big. I start doing them because I'm like, we have 6 months. I thought it was 6 months at the time. We have 6 months. I'm going to get the body that I want. And I'm still under the impression that it was diet, exercise in the sense that you eat as few calories as you can and burn as many as you can, which logistically does make sense, but is not sustainable long-term at all. And I'm going to get to how I actually ended up losing weight in a second. But yeah, that just brought me back to the point I was when I was in high school. Fortunately, at this point, I wasn't binge eating as much as I was when I was younger, but the yo-yo dieting was still in effect for me. It was, and I was still drinking pretty heavily at this point, so I was getting the extra calories in from alcohol, even though I wasn't eating as bad as I was when I was living in dorms. At this point, I actually managed to get into my first relationship. So I started becoming more aware of my body, like most girls do when they have a partner. Started shaving more, looking at myself more in the mirror, buying like sexy clothes so I could impress him, and just overall just wanting to look my absolute best. So at this point, still working out every day, still going on runs, but still eating like crap and not taking care of myself in the way that I should have, and not working out in the way that I should have for my body in particular. It's 2021, me and that guy break up. It was my first relationship. I was heartbroken. This is the first time in my life where I was so sad that I just didn't eat, because I'm an emotional eater. And this guy and I just had such a tumultuous relationship that it left me with a new feeling, which is nausea and just like sickness when it came to food. So I isolated myself for a while, and unintentionally starved myself. And with that, I ended up losing about 20 to 30 pounds. So I finally came out of the depression a lot skinnier, and it was noticeable, and it was brought to my attention by people who saw me on social media. And it was the first time when I was like, okay, well, this is kind of everything I wanted, and I don't know how I did it, but like, we're here. So yeah, this is like a point in my life where I start being more expressive with myself, because I'm noticing that you do get treated differently when you are a smaller size, particularly by men. And as somebody who's been on both sides, it sucks to be a fat girl when you're young and you're impressionable and you like boys. It's awful, and they do treat you differently when you do lose the weight, which kind of made me a little resentful towards men. And I do think that I still carry a little bit of that to this day, even though I know that, or I hope that the guys my age, 24, aren't as shallow as they were when they were 18, 19. But yeah, no, at this point, I didn't even think I was like worthy of a relationship or worthy of love. I was just like, okay, my body's hot. People are going to want to sleep with me. So I was like putting myself out there in that sense because I just had so little confidence in myself because I knew I was going to gain the weight back at some point. I knew like I'd gone back to the binge eating. I knew it was not sustainable, so I was just trying to like in my own words get it where I could at the time. So we're 21 at this point, 22 hits, I'm working a full-time job. And at this point, I've kind of retired from like the whole like dating scene and the whole hookup scene. And I am just focusing on work, my full-time job, my life, my friends, and I don't really pay attention to my body. Like I go on the occasional date here and there, but I'm only dating strangers at this point. It sounds awful, but like not dating anybody from my hometown, like really trying to venture out, and I'm having success with that, and it's giving me a little bit more confidence. And this is like one of the first times in my life where I am really starting to think that I am potentially beautiful, and that's so sad to say, but when you were treated the way a fat girl was treated, or the way a fat girl who lacked any self-confidence, I should say, was treated, you do struggle with understanding that you are lovable and that there is somebody who will find you attractive, and that attraction isn't just skin deep, it's a whole host of other things, and I don't know. So I'm 22 at this point, less insecure, not dieting. I think this is like the healthiest I had ever been body-wise. Wasn't weighing myself, wasn't looking in the mirror. 23, I go back to university so I can complete my degree. And I am back where everything started, back on campus, back in Greek life, back in clubs. And there is so much pressure I did not feel while I was at home doing online school to look good. And I never learned how to like really do my makeup, or like I didn't even have hair at this point. I was bald. I didn't learn how to do any of that. So I felt really insecure next to the other girls. It's just sad to think about, but it's true. So at this point I started like researching more into what worked for my body, what doesn't, and I at this point discovered I discovered that like high protein, low carbs. I was eating a lot of meat, like I was constantly in keto. I was eating a lot of beans, oh my gosh, and drinking water. That was like the biggest game changer for me, just upping my water intake, because at this point I was not drinking water. And I was gaining muscle, I was looking better, I was feeling better, I was getting more attention, which I know is a goal, but that goal transitioned to actually being healthier. Stick with me. I was drinking again, but not to the point where I was like blacking out every time I went out like I was at 19 or 18. And while that was still negatively affecting my body, it wasn't as big of a concern as it was when I was younger. So I kind of disregard that in terms of the calories I was taking, because it was very infrequent for me, at least in that first year I was back at university in 2023 through 2024. 2024, I started gaining a bit of the weight back though. I was living in a smaller town, I wasn't walking as much, even though I was still like eating the same way I had been in 2023, drinking as much water. Because I wasn't moving as much, the weight started piling back on. And I was also in a relationship at this point, and I thought that I had grown past this, but I apparently had not, because I still really wanted to look good for this person, even at the expense of my own health, even though I knew better at this point, which is so sad. I was just trying to shrink myself so that he would find me attractive, because he was one of the smaller guys I'd been with, and that sounds awful, but it's true. He was 5'9", so was I at the time, and we weighed the exact same. So I was already like a little insecure about that. So I was just constantly just trying to get myself smaller, even at the expense of my muscle mass. So I was not eating as much protein anymore because I wanted to lose a bit of muscle, which was counterintuitive because then I was burning less calories naturally and putting on more fat. So I was looking worse, but I was skinnier, if that makes sense. We broke up in July of 2024, and this breakup, it didn't send me into as deep of a depression as the other one did, but I was still a little sad, and I was working a ton. I was so busy. At the time, I would say that I was too busy to be sad, but to be honest, I was just sad while being busy the entire time. And I was gaining weight, I was emotionally eating again, but this time I didn't have the muscle to compensate for it, so my body started looking... I was skinny fat. It started looking pretty bad. I had a pretty bad anterior pelvic tilt. I found out through a personal trainer just from like sitting at a desk job and like hunching my back over and not having enough muscle in my back to support my neck. And I was gaining a bit of a pot belly and my arms were flabby and I just wasn't confident, or not as confident as I had been in previous years. This lasted up until December. And in December, I haven't mentioned this yet, but I work as a model, so I see my body a lot. I did a bikini shoot, and when I got those pictures back, I went, oh no, I need to make a change. And that picture of the bikini shoot is actually the first one in, the first picture in the thumbnail. Got those pictures back, realized that I needed more muscle. So while I was still a relatively smaller size, I think I was like a size 6 to 8 at this point, I looked bigger because I didn't have the necessary support to make myself shrink. So both pictures of the thumbnail, I'm the exact same weight. My measurements are almost the same. I think the green bikini is a little smaller, obviously, but like relatively same. The only difference is my fat percentage has dropped significantly. So here's how I did it. 17 minutes later, I started working out my back with at-home workouts, a ton. Drinking a ton of water every single day. I was aiming for a gallon every single day, and if I couldn't drink it, I would flavor it. And I would flavor it with natural sweeteners, so lemon, honey. I wasn't using any of that Crystal Light stuff because I personally consider that to be juice. But I think working out my back and just gaining strength in my core just shrinked me. Another thing was fixing my hip flexors. I have really, really tight hip flexors. I mentioned earlier that between 20 and 23, I had a desk job. So I was constantly just sitting. I was commuting to work and I was, god damn it. And I was sitting. I'm just gonna take the other one out. And I was sitting all day. So lying down, massaging my hip flexors, popping my hip, just doing everything I could to try to relax those muscles. Another thing that I did was I worked with a PT to try to figure out which muscles in my body were overdeveloped and which were underdeveloped, to figure out what was causing the postural imbalances in my body. And I found out that my trapezius was overdeveloped and my back muscles were underdeveloped. So going back to that, or my lower trapezius was underdeveloped. So I had to adjust my posture to lose this, first of all, so stop working out this so that my body can be more reliant on my actual back muscles. Another thing that I did was I got really into yoga. A pose that helped me was the cat-cow. So that's basically where you're on all fours and you're basically pulling in your back, pushing it out, pulling it in, pushing it out. You can Google that. But that helped me to release my tight hip flexors and strengthen my back, which allowed me to like walk better, exercise better, have more muscle in my arms, tighten everything up. And in addition to that, I was doing like wall angels, planks, push-ups, and just gradually increasing it. So not like starting out doing all of it, just doing as much as I could every single day consistently. And even if that meant just lying down on my bed and massaging my hip flexors and then popping my back. That was it, and that was progress, and that helped. That has progressed to wall push-ups, which has progressed to actual push-ups, which I can do now. In addition to that, I was also back on my high protein diet, so cutting carbs unless when necessary. I wasn't keto anymore because you need carbs for brain function, and I was a uni student, so but limiting my carbs and trying to make sure that they were good quality carbs while also not depriving myself. I personally hate whole wheat bread. I find it to be terrible. It's scratchy, it doesn't taste very good to me, it doesn't satisfy me at all. I like white bread. So I eat white bread, but I eat a moderate version of it. I'm not having like 7 loaves or like toasting it and putting a ton of Nutella. If I have it, it's going to be with a protein source, and that's going to be like one of my treats for the day. That brings me to the other thing that helped, which is always having a treat every single day and making sure that it is something that you actually want. So none of that zero calorie diet food treat stuff, unless that's what you actually crave. If you don't fulfill at least a little bit of a craving, you're not going to be happy, and like this isn't going to be a sustainable thing for you. So whether that's like an ice cream bar or like a piece of cheesecake or like a cookie, just have it that one time a day, but make sure that you are also eating at least 3 protein-filled meals a day, and you're eating enough protein to match your body weight in, what is it? It's not in kilograms. It's a pound for, you need 1 gram of protein for every pound that you weigh in order to build muscle, but you need 0.5 gram of protein per day if you want to maintain. So if I want to build muscle, I personally need 150 grams of protein to 160, because my body does tend to fluctuate. But if I just want to maintain, which I'm about to enter like a maintenance period in my life, I've been in a bulking phase for the last like 3 months, but yeah, for maintenance 100 grams is fine. If I want to lose muscle, which like, why would you want to lose muscle? I guess I would go back down to 50, but yeah, no, if you're trying to just build yourself up, your protein is your friend. Carbs are your cheerleader. They're the ones that give you the energy, and fats are your fucking mother. They are essential. And this is a mistake that I made, which is thinking that fats are terrible for you, and there is no redeeming quality about them. You need fat. You need fat, and whether that be avocado oil, olive oil, or even fucking vegetable oil. If you can't afford to buy those like 22 small little bottles of avocado oil like I can't, vegetable oil does the trick. As long as you're not like guzzling it like you're a freaking Buick, you should be fine. But just making sure that you're getting in those healthy fats. They are your mother, they are everything. They are what will keep you satisfied, but also like they help with your skin, they help with your